Most people will tell you that if you want to grow a bigger business, you have to work a lot harder. But in my experience, the complete opposite has been true. In fact, back in the day when I used to hustle really hard, burning myself out left, right, and center, we would have at best 10-20% annual growth. It was only once I pulled back from the business and worked myself out of it so far that I was only working a few days a month that the business really took off, really exploded, generating millions of dollars in revenue. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the thought process and the structures that you have to put in place in order to build a business that runs pretty much without you, so that you can spend all of your time freezing your nuts off in the English countryside making YouTube videos. In case you don't know me, my name is Olly Richards. I'm the founder of StoryLearning.com. It's a multi-million-dollar online education business. I'm also a mentor and advisor to other online education entrepreneurs. And one of the replies I get most frequently in my inbox is from people who reply to this, who've noticed a tagline that I use from time to time on my website, which is that I run Story Learning working only 6 days a month. And they email me and say, well, how is this possible? In reality, it's often a bit less than that, 4-5 days a month. And the reality for a lot of founders is that even when especially when they get to 6-7 figures, they're working their asses off. I mean, they're busier than they've ever been, and they don't see any kind of pathway through to working less, let alone getting down to the point where you can, do this on any kind of random Thursday. So this video is all about this, because time management for entrepreneurs actually has nothing to do with time. It's about the underlying systems and structures that run your business. So I want to take you back to 2018, when I was very much kind of in the early days of running Story Learning. And I remember in 1 year doing an intense amount of travel in order to create products. I remember flying to Japan to make a Japanese product. A few weeks later, I went to Thailand to make a product for learning Thai. And it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work. And I remember getting back home after the summer and kind of collapsing on the sofa with burnout, and I couldn't open my laptop for about 2 weeks. It was really intense. And I remember saying to myself at that point, okay, never again. I'm not making any courses myself. Like, this has to stop. But of course, it wasn't just that, because around the same time, anyone who was emailing me wanted a reply from Olly. Anyone in a Facebook group was asking Olly questions. If we wanted to make a video, it's like, Olly, we need a video. And everything was running through me. And so I was kind of forced to step back and think, okay, how are we going to make this run without me at the center? And so it was around that time that I started to think about what it would take to get other people to actually play key roles within the business. And so I started to properly take this system, or the method that I used for teaching languages, which was teaching through stories, and actually begin to codify that into something that had a name and a proper structure to it. And that is what became Story Learning. And Story Learning became the underlying, not just the name, but the underlying system or method of the brand. And what that meant was I could bring in other teachers and tutors and people to actually design and build products for the business using the method or the system that I had designed. And what that meant was that the business could then actually grow without me needing to be the one who was actually doing all the work. So this was the first fundamental step in unlocking the growth potential in the business without me myself. So it was a huge relief not to have to make any of the products myself, but I soon started seeing the benefits of having systematized the business extend into other areas of the business. So I started to look at the 3 areas of operations that any different business has, which is operations, marketing, and finance. So with the operations, we had people who were starting to come in and build the products based on my system. And then I thought, well, we should actually put someone in place who is in charge of managing these teachers, because now not only did I not have to make the products myself, I didn't even have to manage the people who were, because I could put someone in place who could do that. And the entire quality control mechanism was this system of stories, of teaching through stories that I had already defined. So there was quality control that was baked in. And I realized that I could step back from that whole operations side of things. So then we started to look at marketing. Now before, whenever we needed to make a video or write a blog post, it always had to be me, because it was like my ideas about language learning. But then I realized, hang on, it's not about me anymore. We've got this method that's called Story Learning. So then I started to build content teams around the blog, around YouTube, who could now start to write and prepare material based on the concept and the method of learning through stories, not just like Olly's opinion. And so we got to a point where I didn't have to write blog posts anymore. For YouTube, I could have a script writer who could prepare material that was written in the brand voice rather than in Olly's voice. And this meant that my time could start to be pulled back from marketing as well. The same thing applied to the emails that we sent, to the things, the copy that went out in promotions. It could all be done in the voice of storytelling. So I found myself in a place where I had not only operations but also marketing taken care of, and I didn't have to input directly into any of that. So then I started to think, well, finance, that's a different animal. How am I going to extract myself from finance? But then I realized that there are people that can help with this, and so I went to jobrack.eu. Shout out to Jobrack, fantastic website where you can get very highly skilled professionals, fluent English speaking professionals from Eastern Europe at very affordable rates. No affiliation, just a great website. And hired a financial assistant who started to take everything off my plate to do with invoicing and payments and things like that. And I started to find it really addictive, all these different ways that I could extract myself from the business. And after 6-12 months of doing this, I found myself really with very little time, and there were periods where I could go for entire weeks without wanting to work. And now this actually creates its own set of problems, because it turns out, surprise surprise, that actually having nothing to do whatsoever and having a calendar that looks like this is not actually the secret to happiness at all. But that's a topic for a different day. Essentially what I had done is I had moved from being the person who was making these home movies on a shoestring budget and then trying to promote them all around the world like some kind of Blair Witch Project thing, through to being the producer of a movie who could say, right, I've got this great concept for a movie, now how can I find a director, a script writer, a casting director who can actually make this movie happen. Basically, I became the Harvey Weinstein of online business. Who doesn't want that? So you may be thinking, okay, lots of free time. Well, that's nice, Olly. Good for you. You can now sit back and do nothing. But that actually is not the moral of the story, because guess what happened once I managed to actually untangle my claws from the web of messiness and actually had other people starting to come into these roles and manage things? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The business started growing very, very quickly. We had finally had what my mentor calls adults in the room. We had people who were responsible for making products, making sure that those products got made, making sure they got launched. We had people who spent all day, every day doing marketing. Finally, invoices were actually getting issued and paid, and everything was getting reported the way it should. Once I got the hell out of the way, that was when the business really started growing, and this is when we scaled very, very quickly from 6 to 7 figures, growing at 30-40% a year. Because as soon as I got out of the way and put the right people in place who could manage things properly, that's when the business was able to expand to its full potential. As entrepreneurs, we are used to suffering from superhero syndrome, and this idea that we can solve everything, we can handle everything, we're the ones that have to do everything. But in reality, so many people are holding themselves back so much that there's a huge amount of wasted potential just being left on the table. This dream that people have of having more free time, of being able to enjoy their lives, this is not incompatible with growing a business. In fact, the opposite is true. And this is the message from this video. Pulling back yourself, creating systems, putting other people in place to manage these systems. This is not only how you get your life back and actually manage to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but also lay the groundwork to grow a business to a scale that's far beyond what you'll be able to do yourself. And if you like this video, you will most definitely enjoy this video over here. At least YouTube thinks you will.